This tank is called the Mark I, and it was the first tank used in World War I, starting in 1916. They built it to cross over the trenches, and it has a motor that's about 100 horsepower, which compares to a more modern one like this that has a 1,200 horsepower engine. This is Da Vinci's tank, and it was never made in his time, but they made this reproduction from his sketches here for the museum. This is a small two-person tank made by the Soviet Union and used up until the end of World War II. This is a Panzer IB, and Germany was prohibited from making tanks from the Treaty of Versailles after World War I, but they made these starting in the 1930s. It was designed for infantry rather than going after armored vehicles. This one's called the Valentine and was the most produced tank by the British military in World War II. This is called a Kettenkrad and was used by the Germans. It was dropped out of planes. This vehicle behind me was designed by Ferdinand Porsche and built by Volkswagen during World War II for the Germans. This is an amphibious car that can go in the water as well as on land, used by the Germans in World War II. You can see it almost looks like a boat hull here. This is a German anti-aircraft tank, and you can see it has the large searchlight next to it. They were used mostly for shooting down planes at night. This is a German Panther tank, which was designed by Mercedes-Benz. Harley-Davidson Liberator. That's pretty cool. I like this. Used by the Soviets when they invaded Afghanistan. It's also used in Vietnam and when Egypt was taking the Suez Canal. This is a German-made Tiger I, which was Germany's heavy tank, and they used it in North Africa and throughout World War II. This is a German-made remote-controlled landmine, so they could steer it with this box, these little joysticks, and they could maneuver it underneath another tank or a bridge or whatever they wanted to destroy. This is an American-made machine gun. You can see it has 4 50 cal guns that can shoot simultaneously. I believe it can shoot 2,200 rounds per minute. This is an American-made tank called the Patton, named after the famous general, and it replaced the Sherman tanks that we used in World War II. The American military never used it, but we sold it to dozens of countries around the world. About 9,000 of them were produced. It's an American-made anti-tank gun. During the Six-Day War in the 1960s between the Jordanians and the Israelis, used a lot of American artillery. This whole room is dedicated to that Six-Day War. This is a British-made tank from 1958. Uses a 8-cylinder Rolls-Royce engine. No tracks. Massive light. American tank here used through the 1980s. This is called a Cobra helicopter made by the United States starting in the Vietnam War. This is one of the smallest tanks ever produced by the US military, and we built it for the British during World War II to be dropped in on gliders. This is a German tank destroyer, and it uses a V12 Maybach engine. Then over here is an American tank destroyer, which was our most popular. We produced, I believe, about 7,000 of them. It's an American-made tank, and you can see it has 6 guns on it. And this was developed in 1956 and then used in the Vietnam War as well as other conflicts. All 6 cannons can be fired at once or in quick succession. This is the Russian-made Strela and was used in the 1980s as an anti-aircraft. It's a Russian amphibious tank. It was developed in the 1970s and used in many conflicts, but as recently as 2014 in Ukraine. In case we hadn't seen enough tanks already, here's yet another room with probably 24 more tanks. It's unbelievable how many tanks are here. You can see basically every tank ever made here. I mentioned before a few of the countries that I saw, but now I've seen even more. They have tanks from South Africa and Austria and Japan. Look how beautifully constructed the Japanese one is. Perfectly smooth. They have tanks here representing virtually every country that's ever built a tank. I didn't realize that these UN vehicles were built in South Africa. It's incredible how much ammunition they held. They really stuck them wherever they can fit. You can see they would have had a bunch here, more over there, more down here. Well, that was great, and I don't think you need to have any particular fascination with tanks to find that interesting. It's just such a thorough collection that it should be interesting to anyone.
I really enjoy, even Juliet, we really don't care much about tanks, but it was really fun.